Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Be Great podcast. I think this is episode 35, if I remember correctly. And we are going to have a little bit of a shorter episode here today because really all we're going to be talking about is the transfer portal. That's really all that's been going on. We've had a few bowl games happen and such. I maybe hit on those. I'll probably do some more bowl picks. I know we have a bowl game tonight. Let me just look up the bowl game schedule real quick. I think tonight what we have Memphis, West Virginia, I think, and like the Scooters something, right? um, let's see. Let's see if I can find it. Yes, the Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl. But I'll do any bowl picks that are going to be for bowl games that are going to happen before I have my next episode, which will be Friday afternoon. So let's see, how many of those would that be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. Looks like 4 bowl games. 1 tonight and then 3 tomorrow. I'll start with that. Then we'll get into the transfer portal. I'll have my obviously picks for the playoff games on Friday as well, because we have that happening this weekend. Very exciting. Let's just start with the bowl pick. So tonight we have Memphis versus West Virginia in the Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl. That's a mouthful. I'm going to go West Virginia. Why? Couldn't tell you. With the transfer portal, it's hard to even know how many of these starters for these teams are even playing. But my basis for this is that West Virginia is an FBS football team. Memphis is an FCS football team. So give me West Virginia, because why not? Tomorrow, we have the Boca Raton Bowl, or if that's how you say it, between Western Kentucky and James Madison. Give me James Madison, because Kurt Signetti coached at James Madison, and now he's in the playoff. So why not just give me James Madison? In the Art of Sport LA Bowl, these names get more comical as the years go on. We have Cal versus UNLV. I actually kind of like this matchup. I'm very intrigued by this matchup. Problem is, Cal doesn't have their starting quarterback. Fernando Mendoza is in the transfer portal. As of right now, actually on 3. He is projected to go to Georgia, ironically. And UNLV has a new head coach, Dan Mullen. I don't know if he's coaching for this game or what's going on there, but I don't know. I don't really know. But you know what? I guess give me UNLV, because Cal doesn't have their starting quarterback. I do know that. Georgia Southern versus Sam Houston. Goodness gracious. Who cares? How about that? R plus L, or R&L, Carriers New Orleans Bowl. Okay, that's on Thursday, December 19th. Oh gosh, who do I pick? You know what? My sister, she went to Georgia Southern. I guess give me Georgia Southern. That's how I make these bowl picks. That's how, because they matter that much. That's how I make these picks, based off my experience with the universities. Do I like your color scheme more? Whose mascot do I find more terrifying? So give me Georgia Southern, simply because my sister went there. How about that? So let's go into the transfer portal, because that's what I really want to talk about, and that's why we're really here. So we've had some more portal entries. John Mateer, the quarterback for Washington State, has entered the transfer portal, which was expected. His I don't know, was it his offensive coordinator, his QB coach, is now the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. That's why On 3 currently has him as a 99.9% chance to go to Oklahoma right now. Which that's kind of where I expect John Mateer to end up. That'd be a good get for Oklahoma. Something that shocked me was Jackson Arnold committing to Auburn. Also, Ashton Daniels, the young quarterback out of Stanford, also committed to Auburn. I, would, interesting strategy. I'm interested to see who Auburn starts next year because I know Auburn is also in the mix for Malik Murphy. So I just look. I mean, might as well have as many good quarterbacks as you can, I guess, and figure out which one's the better one of the three. Although I think Malik Murphy might end up choosing Kentucky. I know he visited there, I think yesterday, but I have a feeling he might end up at Kentucky. But very, very interesting decision for some of these Auburn guys. Jackson Arnold makes sense, although I would have really liked him in Mississippi State. And a really interesting decision from Ashton Daniels when you hear that Jackson Arnold already has committed to or signed to go to Auburn, and so you're going to choose the same thing. I mean, look, I guess it's fine in the sake of competition, but interesting strategy, I guess. But I guess Auburn's kind of at the point where, you know what, we can't find a good QB, so let's just get a bunch of them. Why not? One of them has to be elite, right? Kevin Concepcion, number 3 player in the portal right now. He's doing a bunch of visits, Alabama, Colorado. He's going everywhere. We'll see where he ends up. Let's see. Dylan Theineman, the top safety in the portal. He ended up choosing Oregon. I think it was between Oregon and Ohio State for him. That's a good pickup for Oregon. He's going to be a really good player for Dan Lanning. Dane Key has still not made a decision. He's actually currently visiting Georgia today as we speak. So, I think Georgia's going to want to try and close that race as quickly as possible if I'm Georgia. Let's see. I think I already talked about Berrien Brown choosing LSU. I think on 3 it has Deuce Robinson, the wide receiver out of USC, at a 97% for Arizona State. I would love that pickup for Arizona State and Kenny Dillingham. Luke Kromenhoek, the quarterback transferring from Florida State, has chosen Mississippi State. I like that pickup for Mississippi State. It was a nice little audible from them since they didn't get Jackson Arnold. The Mississippi State quarterback, Michael Van Buren, has chosen LSU. A good pickup for Brian Kelly. He's a good player. He showed some flashes of greatness against Georgia this past season. So I think, you could really develop him and get him in a good place for when Nussmeier leaves. Overall, I've really loved what LSU has done in the transfer portal. I've really loved it. They've made a lot of moves thus far. And let me see if I can find LSU specifically real quick. Let's see. Yes, so LSU has a ton of players that have already committed to them. This is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys already. So Berrien Brown being a receiver, that's something that they really needed. I don't know if Kyron Lacey will be returning next year. I'm not sure. Berrien Brown brings a lot of speed, a lot of experience, and just another player for Nussmeier to throw to. Mansour Delane, I don't remember if I mentioned this. I think I mentioned him with Decario Davis on Friday last week. I really like Mansour Delane. I honestly expected him to declare for the draft. He would have been probably a top 10 corner in the upcoming NFL draft. So for him to now be going to LSU, it's a really good get for LSU, along with Jakeem Jackson, the corner from Florida. You can really tell that LSU had certain positions that they really wanted to get and handle in the transfer portal, and that's what they're doing. I look at everything they did on defense. Look at the things they've done at wide receiver. Destin Hill, another wide receiver they got out of the portal, along with Berrien Brown. They got 2 corners, 2 edge rushers to really shore up that defense. They got Jack Pyburn from Florida, who's a good player. Jamari Butler out of Nebraska, another edge rusher. They got a tight end. I know they need a tight end because Mason Taylor is leaving, and I think he's going to the draft. And they replaced him with Bauer Sharp, who was Oklahoma's leading receiver this past season. They got themselves a young quarterback in Michael Van Buren who has shown flashes of greatness. I've really liked what LSU has done so far in the portal. And obviously, you can't talk about the portal without talking about good old Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels because, he's the master of the transfer portal. So Ole Miss has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys from the transfer portal. Mainly Prince Will Umanmalin, whatever, who is, I'm assuming, the brother of the other Umanmalin, however you say his name, who played for Ole Miss last season. So that's no surprise. You have Patrick Kudus, interior offensive lineman from Arkansas, and Luke Haas, a tight end from Arkansas, going to Ole Miss. Deshaun Womack, an edge from LSU, going to Ole Miss. Deshaun Stripling, Oklahoma State wide receiver, going to Ole Miss. And when you look at On 3, with the players that have not committed anywhere, you see a ton of Ole Miss. Ole Miss is in the running for Dane Key. They're in the running for Justice Haynes. I think they're in the running for Eric Singleton Jr. That they're literally going after any and everybody, and it's of no surprise because, as we know, that's just kind of what Lane does. But if you look at, or no, let's see. Yep, so you have Ole Miss listed for Eric Singleton Jr. Where else? Dane Key. Let's see. Justice Haynes, as I've said. CJ Daniels, another wide receiver. Ahmad Hardy, a running back from ULM. Anywhere else is Ole Miss listed? Charles Brantley, a corner from Michigan State. They're listed there. Anywhere else? I'm sure there's more, but I'm not going to go past the top 50. As far as my team, Georgia, they've been quiet, obviously. They haven't signed anyone, I don't think, from the transfer portal. We've had a number of people come and do visits. I know Dane Key is someone that Georgia would really like to bring into the program. It's why he's on a visit there today. I know Fernando Mendoza is someone that we want. We've had a few quarterbacks come and take a visit. Obviously, today you had the Branch brothers from USC both into the transfer portal. They've already said they're going to go to the same place. So I would really love for Georgia to get in on that action. Trust me. But we'll see on those two individuals. There was someone else. I forgot what his name. Oh, Ethan O'Connor, a corner from Washington State. I know Georgia's really heavy in on him. And I've heard he's a good player. I've heard good things. I didn't watch much of Washington State football, to be transparent, but I've heard that he's a good player. Let's see. Anything else interesting going on in the transfer portal? Once again, I wish I could talk to Kirby and talk about the greatness that is Fluff Bothwell from South Alabama and how we need to bring him to Athens simply for name alone. I mean, could you imagine if you brought Fluff Bothwell and General Booty to Athens? You're talking about electric. Okay? Electricity that few people have ever seen and that few people could ever live through. That's what you're talking if you're talking General Booty and Fluff Bothwell. Just saying. I'm just putting it out there. All right. I just had an idea that I want to run through. I know I haven't done my official playoff predictions, so I'll do that right now. Okay, since we're the week of the first round, I'll go ahead and do my full playoff predictions, who I think is going to win each game, and I'll just go more in depth on at least these first round matchups on Friday, which is obviously the day of the Notre Dame-Indiana game and the day before the other three matchups. So I'll just give my picks real quick. Early thoughts. Let's start Notre Dame-Indiana. That game's on Friday. I think Notre Dame wins. Simply put, I think Notre Dame is the better football team. I think they're the better football team compared to Indiana. It's going to be rough conditions. I think Notre Dame has the better running game, and they'll be able to run the ball down Indiana's throat. I just do not think Indiana is talented enough, and they're not battle tested. They haven't played a hard enough schedule to be battle tested. So give me Notre Dame, and they'll go on to face Georgia in the second round. What game is first? Is it Penn State SMU? Are they first? We'll say I think they are first. I think Penn State gets it done. SMU, I don't think will do great up there in the elements. And look, I think the element talk is a little overblown. A little overblown. But I also think with the environment that is Penn State when they're at home, I think it's just going to be hard for SMU to manage. And, I've heard a lot of people say that these first round matchups, they're mostly going to be blowouts. I very much disagree. As a matter of fact, I really only think that one of these games is going to be a blowout, and it's the one I already mentioned. I could totally see Notre Dame blowing out Indiana. I could totally see that. Okay? And I think that might be what happens. But with this game, I could totally see this game being close going into the fourth quarter. If you honestly told me, hey, SMU beat Penn State, I honestly would not be that shocked. I wouldn't be. Because look at who we're talking about. We're talking about Penn State. We're talking about James Franklin. They're allergic to big games. They're allergic to success. We know this. We've known this. That's the reality. So I think it could be a close game going into the fourth quarter, and then Penn State pulls away. I could totally see that, but I think Penn State ultimately will get it done and go on to face Boise State. What's the other matchup? Oh my gosh, I'm drawing. Oh, Clemson, Texas, Battle of the Oranges, huh? Again, I think this game could be close. And the reason I think it could be close is from what we just saw of Texas in the SEC championship game. Clemson has a very good defense, and they have a very good defensive line. I think they can stop the run of Clemson, which is what Georgia's game plan has been. If you've looked at the past two matchups, Georgia has stopped the run. They've turned their Texas run game into basically nothing. And I think Clemson can do the exact same. I just don't think it's possible for Texas to blow Clemson out because I think Clemson has too good of a defense. And I think the defense will keep Clemson in the game. The problem is that Clemson's offense will not be good enough to consistently score or move the ball on Texas's defense because Texas also has a very good defense. So I think that's where Clemson's going to run into trouble, and Texas will ultimately pull away and win. But again, I don't see a blowout. Tennessee, Ohio State. I think Tennessee, Ohio State could be an electric game. I really do. And I've thought about this game a lot, and I've gone back and forth with what I think, because at the end of the day, Ohio State is at home, and Ohio State, at the end of the day, is the more talented team. And you can make the argument that at least one would think that Ryan Day and his staff and these players, this Ohio State team, learned from their mistakes against Michigan. Because I'll tell you this, Tennessee's defensive line is also very good. So if you try that whole little, we're going to run up the middle 50,000 times to no avail, you will lose to Tennessee because Tennessee can actually throw a forward pass. Tennessee has a way better offense than Michigan. Trust me when I tell you that. But at the end of the day, what did it for me with my pick is I just sat down and I thought, you know what? This is Ryan Day we're talking about here. This is Ohio State and Ryan Day we're talking about here. Another guy who is allergic to shining when it matters most, to winning when it matters most, to coming up big. He's allergic to it. You can't, and I know people are going to respond and say, he has 2 wins against playoff teams. Indiana, who's massively overrated, and Penn State, who's massively overrated. Okay, James Franklin, who is the only coach worse at winning big games than Ryan Day. Spare me. Spare me. I think Tennessee wins for that reason. I think Tennessee is going to come out guns blazing. Ohio State could very well come out slow, sluggish, and dead inside from their performance against Michigan. It's possible. It's possible. But at the end of the day, I think the game's going to be close. I really do. So the second round matchups, you were talking Georgia, Notre Dame, Boise State, Boise State, Penn State, Oregon, Tennessee, and then Texas, Arizona State. I would have Texas beat Arizona State. I would have Oregon beat Tennessee. I would have Penn State beat Boise State. I would have Georgia beat Notre Dame. Then you would have Georgia, Penn State, and you would have Oregon, Texas, which I think is what most people are kind of predicting. I think to the people who think that Notre Dame has a chance of beating Georgia, I think you're out of your mind because at the end, not because Notre Dame sucks. I don't think that they suck. But if you give Kirby Smart 3 weeks, he's going to win the football game, plain and simple. Plain and simple. You give him 3 weeks, oh, no, whoever that team could be, Indiana, Notre Dame, I don't care. They have no shot. No shot. And I think Georgia beats Penn State. Why? Because it's James Franklin in a big game. And I will take Kirby 50 times out of 50 times over James Franklin in a big game. I think most people would. And then I'd have Oregon beat Texas. I think Oregon is simply too talented. And then you have Kirby Smart versus Dan Lanning, Georgia versus Oregon in the national championship, which I predicted back in January, by the way. And I mean, look, you guys know this. I'm a Georgia fan through and through. I bleed red and black. Of course, in that spot, I'm picking Georgia. I'm picking the better coach. Okay, and look, maybe my opinion changes. I would, I'm going to need to see Gunnar Stockton as a starter against Notre Dame. I'm going to have to see what that looks like, and maybe my opinion changes. Maybe I say, you know what, this team's good enough to make the Natty, but Oregon's just too talented, and Gunnar Stockton is just simply not good enough right now for this spot. Maybe. But I believe in Georgia. I believe in Kirby Smart. So give me the dogs to win the national championship. I hope everyone has a great week. I will have another episode on Friday. Everyone have a beautiful, great Tuesday, and go dogs.